There have been a few routes that, like, Daniel Woods has climbed some of the hardest boulders in the world, and he basically gets to the top of the problem and then has to do 20 feet of slab climbing, like exit climbing, to get to the actual top of the boulder. And it looks like he's going to shit himself and he's going to die up there. And you're kind of like, come on, Daniel, you're doing the hardest thing in the world. And then you can't do the, like, VB exit slab. Like, I mean, I know it's scary, but it shouldn't be that scary compared to literally the hardest moves that have ever been done on rock that you just did. You know, it's like, so there are a lot of things like that where, you know, you could gain some skills from other aspects of climbing. But in general, if you can do the hardest moves on boulders, you don't have that much to learn by going trad climbing. You know, it's like, yeah, you might be able to improve your technique a little, your footwork a little bit, but in theory, you could learn all those things just through bouldering as well.
Yeah, I'm thinking about that shot of him on Return to the Sleepwalker, and he pulls all the hardest moves, and he gets onto that kind of slabby top out, and he's like calling for chalk bags, and he's standing, and it's like he speeds up the film, and it's like 10 minutes of where he's basically on this slab top.
Yeah,
out.
so
look at the ones at the buttermilks are kind of similar, right? Like you climb
exactly
like super hard, and then it's like, but it's still like heady, right? It's like a 20-foot or
no,
30
it's not heady. That's the thing is, like, so I've done that top out to Return to the Sleepwalker thing, because there's like a V6, like an older problem where you like jump start to this kind of jug to the left of that. You basically top out that same part of the boulder, and it's funny because the V6, I was like, oh, this is kind of hard, you know, and then you traverse it. But basically, as soon as you stand up there, like in my tennis shoes, I would feel comfortable just walking up that slab because you're like, oh, this is just like the approach to something like this is totally normal, totally chill. And then you watch the world's best boulders like shitting themselves on it. And you're kind of like, come on. Like, but, you know, but that said.
They haven't had that exposure though.
No, but I think the important thing to bear in mind here is that, you know, I can make fun of him. I can tease Daniel for being bad on the exit climbing. But the thing is that with someone throwing him a chalk bag and him slowing down his breathing and spending 10 minutes, like he can figure it out and get through it. But with no amount of effort, could I get through the bottom moves of Return to Sleepwalker? You know, it's like, it's not like somebody giving me a chalk bag is going to suddenly allow me to do the hardest moves on rock. And so I think that's the important thing to keep in mind is that, like, Daniel doesn't really need those other skills, like, because he can still climb the hardest things in the world. And no amount of, like, good technique or, like, tricky know-how is going to get me up those moves. Like, that's the thing, is at a certain level, like, having the strength to pull hard moves is more important than anything else.
All right, y'all, just a 30-second break here to tell you about today's sponsor, which is Fizzy Vantage Nutrition. I love their stuff. I'm sipping on their supercharged collagen right now in my morning tea. The vanilla flavor tastes just like a creamer in my tea. And what does it do? Well, it helps your tendons to get stronger, to recover faster, so that you can train harder and climb longer. And who doesn't want to do that? Y'all, I've been using this stuff for years. It really is the best of the best. They've got an incredible pro athlete team. Check it all out at fizzyvantage.com. You hit that link below and you're going to get 15% off, automatically loaded, or use code STRUGGLE at checkout to get that discount. Cheers. Does Mellow kind of exemplify the bouldering world, or are they their own thing, like their own subculture within bouldering? What's your take on this whole bouldering as a sport, but also kind of what Mellow represents?
I think Mellow represents a little bit of its own thing within the bouldering world. I mean, I think there are a lot of boulders who are like Mellow, you know, who like want to listen to hip hop on their speakers while they're sessioning really hard limit boulders, you know, with their fans going and all that kind of stuff. You know, just like super modern, like new school bouldering. That said, I mean, you wonder how much of that is because all those people have grown up watching Mellow videos. I mean, because it's crazy. Mellow's only existed for several years. And so it's not like anyone's like grown up watching Mellow, but I think it's been pretty influential over the last several years.
Is it the logical extension of like the Dosage films, do you think?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I basically think that Mellow is the new version of the Dosage films. And sort of the hipper, like cooler version in a way.
Right.
But I mean, Mellow is basically what the film Rampage was in the late 90s or whenever Rampage came out on VHS.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
You know, I mean, at the time it was so cool. Like, yeah, and now Mellow is the same thing, but just much more fresh.
Right. And it is like a group thing. It's a team thing. It's very cool. It surprised me. It came out in this interview that people will hear that Sean is this kind of the CEO of Mellow.
I know. I was shocked by that. I was like, how could Sean possibly be running anything? But
well, it just struck me. What struck me as funny is that there's actually a CEO of Mellow. I don't know. Like, it just there's like somebody in a suit that's like running Mellow, but like it's because it kind of seems like it's this underground thing where people are just submitting videos, which it probably is for the most part. But
yeah,
I guess
it
has
is
to, like,
for sure.
Pay the bills and make some decisions or something.
I mean, I love Mellow videos, but like when you look at the Mellow YouTube, I mean, most of their best videos don't really have that many views compared to any of the sort of clickbaity climbing content that you can find online. And to me, that basically that shows that Mellow is not optimizing any of their anything. I mean, they're just too busy sending and putting out videos, but there's definitely no corporate overlord like maximizing their revenue through ad stuff, because, you know, I mean, they're putting out some of the best climbing content available anywhere, and not that many people see it overall. And you're like, man, there's so many other climbing platforms that just aren't that good. They get so many views, and you're kind of like, come on, really? Like, that stuff is just trash compared to Mellow.
Yeah, and it doesn't strike me that the Mellow guys even give it, like, to your point, they're just out there sending, and they're collecting the best stuff, and so they care a little bit, but maybe don't care enough to like make it even fully realize its potential.
I think maybe part of that, and now I'm just totally speculating, but I think part of that might be because each of the guys involved in Mellow is sponsored individually on their own, and so they're already professional climbers, and so their focus is climbing the hardest things in the world and sort of making a living through their sponsors. And they're definitely not trying to be YouTube stars in any way or you know, sell anything on YouTube. They're just putting the content out there because it's cool, like, because they're doing really hard stuff and they want to share it. And, you know, I think that sets them in contrast to other sorts of YouTube influencer-y sort of folk who aren't necessarily professional climbers and are just like looking for a way to make a living through climbing. I just think the Mellow guys just don't care about that kind of stuff because, you know, they're already getting their free clothes and they're sending the hardest things in the world, and they're like, whatever. Like, we're in Switzerland drinking wine. Who gives a... You know, you're like, I don't know.
It does literally seem like 80% of the year they're in Switzerland drinking wine.
Yeah, exactly. I know.
Or somewhere
I'll be shocked wine.
If every third picture Daniel posts is of some like super nice bottle of wine. I'm like,
is it? Classic.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He's they've got good taste. I'll give him that.
Do they? That's quiet. I don't know my wine.
I mean, I don't either, but they're all foreign labels. I'm like, it's got to be decent.
I mean, foreign labels in Europe is probably like a €2 bottle of wine. It's like whatever.
That's true. And they probably get, after the first glass, you can't tell the difference anyway. But that is something that kind of separates the boulderers from big wall and sport climbers. And earlier you said, hey, you know, I'm not the strongest in bouldering. And I wonder if you think much about what sport climbers or big wall climbers can gain from what the boulderers are doing really well, and vice versa, or are they very siloed?
I don't know. I mean, I would say that the cultures are a little bit siloed in that the people all just hang out doing their own things. It's just different scenes. But in terms of climbing movement, you know, like if you want to be a next level sport climber or big wall climber, you have to be able to boulder at a high level. Because basically when it comes down to it, if you want to climb hard routes, you have to be able to do hard moves, and hard moves are found on hard boulders. You know, so it's like, if you want to climb the hardest routes in the world, you have to be able to boulder at a high level.